Well, it's that time of the week, Feature Friday segment on KCMO, one of my favorite conversations to have all week long, where we really just bring somebody in who is deeply ingrained in the Kansas City community, whatever that is. It can be news, it could be sports, it can be charitable organizations. And this morning we are happy to welcome on and say hello to an organization that I admit I did not have a lot of familiarity with, but I'm glad that we're getting more familiar with them. Answering the Call is the organization here in Kansas City. Their president is Ronnie Doumitt. He is joining us on KCMO 95.7 FM. Ronnie, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
So first off, take me through the background of Answering the Call, how you guys were founded 10 years ago now, and what that story is.
Yeah, 10 years ago, 2015, I was a detective in the investigations division of the Lee Summit Police Department. April 16th, that morning, one of our detectives got sick. He was taken to the hospital at St. Luke's, and then he was rushed to St. Luke's on the Plaza via an ambulance. And that really started a 4-month journey to save Josh's life. Josh was diagnosed with necrotizing fasciitis, which is a flesh-eating bacteria. I was reassigned to his wife, his young wife, and 3 young kids to kind of assist them and meet their needs. Josh was placed in a medically induced coma. He was enduring surgeries every day to get ahead of this virus. And I watched a financial dissolve in the family almost immediately. When you take a first responder off the job for an extended period of time, their family kind of starts to suffer financially. Waited for resources to reach out, people to get involved, other organizations to step in and assist, just because Josh was a first responder and served our community for 10 years, and quickly realized there was nothing. There was nothing in place. So that year we decided to go ahead and start an organization to do just that, and we started Answering the Call in June of 2015, and that's exactly what we do. We get involved with our Kansas City metro area, Kansas and Missouri first responders after they survive a severe catastrophic injury or diagnosed with rare and aggressive illness.
So you start this because you're seeing this firsthand, and as you are building Answering the Call, you're realizing the need for this, especially around Kansas City, these first responders who are dealing with these health crises, and then suddenly they've got nowhere to turn, and their spouses are taking financial hits, the family, the kids are getting hurt. So how do you then build this thing up to where it is today?
Well, build it up because the community loves and supports our first responders. I mean, I just put it God and community, honestly. You know what's so cool about that is that's the oath that our first responders take is to serve God in our community. And that's exactly who's stepping right back in and serving them in their time of need is God in this community, which I just think is so cool. So that's what, honestly, that's the reason why we're successful. This community comes out, they support our mission, they come out to our events, and they make them overwhelmingly successful. And that's the only reason we're keeping our head above water, and we're able to step in and do exactly the same thing for them.
Answering the Call is where you find them, atc911.org.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
That's correct.
So what is a story that over these 10 years, I'm sure there's a bunch that you can share, but one that really stands out to you is maybe one of your most powerful?
One of the most powerful, and I'll tell two, because one's an injury and one's an illness. I tell Tyler Smith is an Independence firefighter. Him and his wife, Kayla, have 2 beautiful young daughters. Tyler, I think it's been about 2.5 years ago now, was diagnosed with a rare, very aggressive cancer.
How old?
Tyler was probably 28 maybe at the time.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, young. 2 young babies at home, beautiful young ladies, Sadie and Brooklyn. The uniqueness of this family is that Brooklyn is special needs. She's nonverbal wheelchair bound. So Tyler takes upon himself a lot of the brunt of lugging the wheelchair in and out of the van and carrying her up and down the 2 flights of stairs to her bedroom. Now he's not able to do that. So now all this is thrust upon Kayla, his sweet little wife. So we get involved immediately. We were involved within weeks of the diagnosis, started to learn more about the family. I just fell in love with both of them and their girls. About 18 months later, Tyler was cancer-free. We had donated several $1,000s, kept their head above water financially, and then unfortunately he gets re-diagnosed.
Oh.
And now with that happening and his recovery, Brooklyn had a huge spinal surgery coming up about 6 months away. So he himself was building a elevator in his house. He was getting everything set up for the elevator to be input. They were going to get a secondary loan. So we started to fundraise behind their back, essentially. And he beat the secondary diagnosis, and which was just amazing. And God came through and shined through there. But at the same time, this community surrounded them once again, and we were able to secretively kind of behind their back meet with the elevator company. We got the elevator installed and put in their home. And it was just incredible. But those are the things, those are the stories that.
What did that cost? Out of curiosity,
it was $29,000
to get that elevator in the
elevator
house.
company, ECA Electric, which has just been a great supporter of ours, stepped in immediately, got a hold of the elevator company, did all the electrician work for free. The elevator company significantly discounted it for us. The community surrounded this amazing family. Their story is on our website and our Facebook page. They sit down and tell their story. That's one thing that we're a no strings attached nonprofit. I ask nothing of these men and women. Sometimes I don't even meet them. They just need our financial assistance immediately. But sometimes they'll reach out and ask, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "Sit down and tell your story. It's powerful."
Yeah,
it's very powerful. And the other one I think of is just KCPD alone in 2023. People don't realize this. Kansas City Police Department had 4 officers shot in the month of February alone in 2023.
Gosh, that's right.
Within a 2-week period. AJ was shot in the front steps of KCPD headquarters on Super Bowl Sunday, and then 2 weeks later, 3 of his TAC officers were shot in a search warrant that they were executing on a fentanyl house. That's pretty significant, and you have 4 guys, 4 families significantly impacted, and we assisted with every single one of them. Got involved within hours. I was at the hospital with every single one of them, and I think one of the most powerful moments for me is when one of the spouses. They sit down and tell their story as well. It's on our website. But she told me, she goes, "You knew what I needed before I did." And I said, "Well, I've done this for 10 years, unfortunately. So I do, but this is on behalf of the community."
Yeah.
That's what's so powerful about it. It's on behalf of the community.
That's amazing. Ronnie Doumitt joining us, president of Answering the Call here in Kansas City, ATC911.org. I think about this organization, and one of the organizations nationally that came to mind is Tunnel to Towers, which a lot of people, are going to be familiar with. You see them on Fox News all the time as well. But they're different because what they'll do is they'll build homes or do things like that for first responder families in need. So it's different from your model, but it is somewhat similar in terms of the people they're helping, right?
Yeah, they've helped the same folks we've helped.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not a line-of-duty death nonprofit. There's plenty of financial resources, and there should be, for our men and women that lose their life in service. There's a lot of financial resources for their family. The one thing that we step in and do with now, I hate to say even the word, but the widows of Kansas City that we've lost our men and women over the last couple of years, is we get involved and become a resource. The W Law firm right down the street from where we're at here steps in and does family trusts for the families, which is incredible at no cost. But what Tunnels for Tower does is they step in and pay off their mortgage. So we're feeding both of these families just in different ways.
So you're feeding kind of the immediacy
Correct.
Need, and it doesn't necessarily tie to somebody who, God forbid, may be a widow. It could be somebody who's in recovery of an illness that comes from on the job, or many times it's not even illnesses that came from the job or injuries that came from the job, right?
Absolutely.
It's anything.
We're duty, non-duty related. Yeah, we need them back on, to take a quote from a movie, we need them back on that wall. We need them back out in that street, in that car, and we need them back in their fire rig. That's where we need them. That's where they want to be. Mm-hmm. So what I've learned and what I believe is truly happening is when you remove that financial stress immediately, it allows them to focus on recovery.
Yeah.
It allows them to focus on recovery. They don't have to worry about their finances. We're going to pay your mortgage for the next 5 months, and then your spouse is going to reach out to me when she or he and your family need anything, because we just turn into that community resource.
That's amazing. Ronnie Doumitt answering the call here in Kansas City. ATC911.org is joining us for our Feature Friday segment. We're going to take a quick break and come back with Ronnie, what's coming up next for them and how people can help, and a lot of other great things they are doing here in Kansas City next on KCMO. Ronnie Doumitt, president of Answering the Call here in Kansas City on KCMO Talk Radio, an amazing organization helping to support first responders and their families during times of need, such as following severe illness or injury. Let's talk about both sides of our state line here, Ronnie, because, listen, these are individuals, men and women, who risk their lives every single day. And that's what they do. They're happy to do it. But most people would say, considering the risk they take on, they are oftentimes underpaid. right? That's
Absolutely.
a fair assessment.
They don't get into it for the pay.
They're not into it for the pay.
No, sir.
I mean, they have a passion for it. They love it. Kind of like why we're in radio. The difference is they're risking their lives every day to do it. So when they deal with these issues, illness, injury, there's nothing from the states or the cities that you're aware of that help them in these situations, right? Beyond their paycheck that they're already getting.
Yeah, there's nothing built in to step in and say we have a police officer shot in the head and he's laying in a hospital bed. I think the biggest misconception that I've learned over my 10 years of doing this and doing different speaking engagements around the metro is that the general public just believe that there's something built into the city, the state, resourcefully, that steps in and just gets involved with the family to assist them financially while the first responder is recovering. And unfortunately, there is nothing. There is zero resources for them. And that's what I learned 10 years ago, and that's the whole purpose of our foundation.
You know, and I didn't think about this, but you alluded to it last segment, which is, okay, they're still getting their pay. That's great. But you don't think about the lost income from the spouse or the off-duty income.
Correct.
That a lot of them rely on in these jobs,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, you hear about if you know a police officer, then you know that they work constantly above and beyond a 40-hour week because
they
they're
all do,
constantly working off-duty and overtime jobs. Same with fire; they have secondary jobs that when you remove them from that secondary income to them, which is off-duty overtime or a secondary position that they have somewhere, man, they will be crushed financially immediately. $1,500 to $1,700 a month was the last figure that was given to me by a Kansas City spouse when her husband was shot in 2023. Is what they were
was
losing.
that number again?
$1,500 to $1,700 a month, and that officer was off for 8 months.
Wow.
We stepped in to help that family 3 different times in that 8-month period. And now he's back on the road, and he's promoted, and he's a road sergeant, and he's right where we need him to be. But we were able to keep them and their 3 young daughters head above water financially for 8 months.
Now, you mentioned the generosity of this community being the reason for your success 10 years later, but was there a moment that this organization you felt went from being like, all right, we got a little something going here, we got an idea, but this thing really started to pop, it really started to grow, you got to help a lot of people. Was there a moment or a person or an organization that really helped launch that for you?
You know, I started it in 2015. I was working narcotics at the time, so busy, 2 kids at home. Young babies at home, wife, and trying to run a nonprofit that I had no idea what I was doing, to be really honest with you. But when Tom Wagstaff was shot, and I believe it was 2017 in Independence, he was shot in the head during a home invasion. And Tom, I knew Tom from just our agencies worked side by side with one another. He was on the SWAT team. I was on the SWAT team at the time. And we got involved there immediately. And that took, when you have an officer who is shot in the head, it gains national recognition. And this community surrounded Tom and his wife, who was a teacher in Raytown at the time, and it was significant. And that's what really, I hate to say it, but it took a tragic event like that to kind of put us on the map. And the work we did there with Tom and his wife, and they're doing great now. And believe it or not, Tom defied all odds, and he's alive. He lost his profession over his severe injury. But this community surrounded that family and raised several $100,000 for him.
How's he doing?
He's doing great. He's living in Texas. He moved down close to a gym that he was traveling to 2 to 3 times a week that helped with the severe trauma that he took to his brain. And him and his wife just said, you know what, we're going to build a house right down the street from it. So they're living down there. I get random texts from him all the time. He's doing phenomenal. He's doing phenomenal. He's alive.
Where is he down there? Do you know?
I actually don't know where he's at down south, but
Yeah, they're doing great. You know, we love Tom, and we invite him up for events when he can come up and stay in touch with him. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. He defied the odds. I mean, those guys were going in and saying goodbye to him. They were giving him his last rites. And then we came in the next morning and we prayed over him, and we came in the next morning to the hospital, and the doctor came in and told his wife, I don't know how to tell you this, but we're witnessing a miracle. And he survived. Wow. He survived. He's a father still, and he's hugging his wife and kissing his boys, and just absolutely incredible.
That's amazing.
Brain, I mean, he's still got bullet fragments in his brain from the 223 round.
Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Does he have all his, can he function fully?
Yeah, he functions. He's not walking quite yet. He's getting there, but if I know anything about Tom Wagstaff, he'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll get there. He's defied the odds so far.
So he's in a wheelchair.
He's in a wheelchair. He's going to a gym constantly, regularly. He's doing, normal duties for the most part down there where he's at, mowing the grass and stuff, jumping in his zero turn. But he's doing great. I mean, think about that. You take a 223 to the right frontal lobe of your brain, and you just don't think there's going to be much left, but he's defied the odds.
Wow.
Ronnie
Doumitt
stepped in.
Absolutely. Answering the call here in Kansas City, atc911.org. So you guys are celebrating 10 years this year. What does that look like for you?
Well, it's impactful. It's incredible that, I tell people this all the time. I don't think there's another place in the country that our organization, from the grassroots up, would have been successful anywhere else in the country other than Kansas City. And I think that's just, that's because they love the first responders so much. Men and women are born and raised here, and they stay here. And then they turn around and they serve here. They go overseas and they fight for our country, and they come home and they serve our community right here in their own backyard. So there's just not another place in the country that I think our mission would have been as successful as it is. But yeah, so 10 years is incredible. We're going to have our first ever ATC. We're calling it the Resiliency Gala, and that's because our first responders are so resilient. And we're going to tell over the 300 plus recipients we've had over the 10 years and 1.3 million that we've donated back. We're going to tell 5 stories that night at the gala, and we're going to highlight them and the struggles they went through and the resiliency they showed to defeat the odds, defeat the severity of the injury or the illness that they survived.
That's amazing. Now, there's 2 obviously elements to this I want to wrap up with. People who need your help, families who need your help, and then, of course, how people can help you. How would you answer both of those?
People that need our help?
Yeah.
Those are just the first responders out there, and they may think that they don't need our help. They're very proud people. But if they've suffered a severe catastrophic injury, duty or non-duty related, or are diagnosed with a rare and aggressive illness, they need to reach out to us. Let us decide if it's something we can step in and assist with. Secondary, if you're out there in the community and you just want to help, you can go to our website, atc911.org. Like you mentioned earlier, our big campaign is $9.11 a month recurring donation from the community. That is gaining speed and momentum right now, and that is huge for us. Those reoccurring donations of a minimum of $9.11 a month.
Because it's just there every month, so it kind of helps you figure out.
It's a cup of coffee a week.
Yeah,
that you're just going to give once a month. It's like $112 a year broken up. You can donate more if you'd like.
Yeah.
But we're asking for that minimum $9.11.
That's a great goal. $9.11 a month. atc911.org. Ronnie Doumitt on KCMO Talk Radio. Man, I'm so glad we got connected. Our buddy Mike Kuckelman got us connected on this, and happy to tell your story. And glad you're here, Ronnie. Thanks so much for being here.
It's been an honor. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Ronnie Doumitt, president of Answering the Call here in Kansas City, celebrating 10 years later this year. atc911.org is how you get a hold of them. That's atc911.org.